Welcome to Backyard Fortune. Here, ordinary scraps become unforgettable garden magic. If you love creativity, practicality, and a touch of European charm, you're in the right place. Most people would call these items trash, things meant to be forgotten, tossed aside, or left in storage forever. But what if the secret to a breathtaking European-style garden was already sitting in your home, disguised as something worthless? Today, we're going to reveal 10 remarkable ideas that turn everyday junk into pure outdoor magic. Welcome to Backyard Fortune, the channel where we explore simple, creative, and achievable DIY transformations that bring charm and beauty into your garden. In this video, we'll break down how each project works, why the materials matter, and how you can recreate them no matter where you live. You'll find timestamps below to help you jump to the ideas you want. And if you have any questions or want help customizing your own design, feel free to leave a comment. We always read them. One, radiant bottle blossom wall, plastic bottle flower fence. When you step into a garden like this, you begin to understand that beauty doesn't always come from expensive materials or perfect planning. Sometimes it grows from the quiet courage to look at something forgotten and imagine what it could become. In the soft light of early morning, the bottle blossom wall feels almost alive. Sunlight threads itself through every translucent petal. Sky blue, sunflower yellow, blush pink, casting gentle colors across the lavender below. Dew clings to the edges like tiny gems, and a butterfly pauses on a blue bloom as though it recognizes this place as home. These flowers were once nothing more than plastic bottles. Now they hold the light with such grace that you almost forget their past. As the day warms, the colors shift. The afternoon sun pours through the petals and scatters stripes of rainbow across the grass. A breeze slips between the vines, climbing the mesh, rustling tomato leaves and sending raspberries trembling against their stems. This is where nature and craft meet each other halfway. The vines soften the shapes of the recycled flowers, and the flowers return the favor by brightening the vines with flickers of color. It's a partnership born from patience rather than perfection. Anyone can create this kind of wall. A pair of scissors, a few bottles, a bit of wire mesh, and the willingness to cut, shape, and experiment is all it takes. The sunlight will take care of the magic once the work is done. By evening, the garden transforms again. The petals, now clear and quiet, hold the last glow of daylight in their curved surfaces. Small lights tucked behind them flicker to life, and fireflies wander through the lavender as though they've been summoned by the soft shimmer. The bottle flowers turn into lanterns, some glowing from the inside, others reflecting stray beams that drift across the tomatoes climbing gently up the wire. The air cools, and the garden settles into a more intimate rhythm. It's in moments like this that a simple idea feels like a story unfolding. You don't just see the recycled material anymore. You feel the atmosphere it creates. You understand why people pause here, why they linger just a little longer than they planned. If you ever choose to build something similar, allow yourself to enjoy the process rather than rush it. Let the shapes be uneven. Let the petals curve however they want. Give the vines time to find their way around the mesh. A garden like this grows through collaboration between hands, sunlight, patience, and imagination. Start with only a few flowers if that feels easier. Add others later. Place them where the sun passes naturally, and let the light become part of the design. Over time, the wall will change with the seasons, with the weather, with your own additions and small adjustments. And those shifting colors, those soft lights at dusk, the presence of a butterfly and the hum of lavender. They will remind you that something beautiful can be built from nearly nothing. Trash does not remain trash when someone sees potential in it. In a garden like this, recyclables turn into rhythm, color, memory, and magic. And perhaps, as you watch the petals glow softly under the twilight sky, you'll realize that the most enchanting corners of the world are often born from the simplest materials held together by curiosity and heart. Two, rustic tin can lantern trail, handmade garden path lights. At the edge of evening, when the sun begins to loosen its hold on the day, a garden path can suddenly feel like a place where stories pause before entering the night. Along this cobblestone walkway, the first flickers of warmth appear long before darkness arrives. Tin cans, once forgotten in kitchen cupboards or tossed into recycling bins, now glow with patterns of hand-punched flowers, stars, and winding vines. Their light is gentle, never loud, casting soft petal-shaped shadows over thyme, chamomile, and lavender that line the path like quiet companions. The golden hour sun leans low through the orchard, weaving its last threads of light through arching apple trees overhead. The lanterns catch this warmth and return it, turning the entire path into a soft ribbon of amber. What makes this scene enchanting is not just its beauty, but its simplicity. Anyone can breathe life into an empty can. A nail, a hammer, a pattern sketched with a pencil. These are tools nearly everyone can find. Fill the can with water and freeze it before punching your design. The ice keeps the metal firm, preventing dents and making each star or petal clean and crisp. Paint them if the moment inspires you. Soft sage green, lavender, pale cream. These colors glow gently at dusk, blending with marigolds, long grass, and wildflowers nearby. Once lit, the lanterns seem to hum with a warmth that pulls you in, almost as though each flame is whispering a tiny welcome. As dusk deepens and colors slip into softer tones, the lanterns take on a new rhythm. Their light stretches further across the walkway, illuminating smooth stones, shimmering blades of grass, and the delicate edges of marigold petals. This is the hour when the garden feels closest to its own heartbeat, slow, steady, content. And in this gentle fading, the lanterns become more than decor. They become markers of a journey, encouraging you to walk a little farther, breathe a little slower, and notice things you may have missed during the day. Night arrives quietly in a European garden like this. Lavender grows darker, shadows grow cooler, and then, almost without warning, small points of green begin to rise from the moss. Fireflies drift between the hanging tin lanterns, moving with a soft curiosity. Their tiny sparks echo the glow inside the cans, creating a dance of natural and handmade light. Lanterns sway slightly from shepherd hooks, casting patterned shadows over the moss and daisies below. The whole garden shifts into something that feels both earthly and enchanted. This kind of magic doesn't demand perfection. It asks only for attention and a willingness to turn something ordinary into something meaningful. Choose cans of different shapes if you have them. Mix patterns, stars, leaves, tiny clusters of dots that scatter light like constellations. Place them along a pathway or hang them in a corner of the yard where you like to sit. Let them guide your steps or illuminate quiet conversations after sunset. And don't worry if some holes are uneven or if the paint smudges a little. Those small imperfections allow the lanterns to feel more like handmade memories than polished objects. In the end, these simple tin lights remind us that beauty often comes from looking twice at what we once overlooked. A can that carried soup can carry light. A scrap of metal can shape an evening. And a garden, no matter how small, can feel like a fairy tale chapter when lit with the soft glow of something made by hand. Three, terracotta herb staircase, layered brick garden terrace. There is a quiet kind of wonder that settles over a garden shaped by hand, especially one built not from polished stone or expensive materials, but from the humble weight of terracotta bricks. In the early hours of the morning, when sunlight first brushes the tops of the herbs, the brick terraces feel almost ancient, like steps carved slowly through time by gardeners who worked with nothing more than soil, patience, and a desire to grow something useful. Rosemary and thyme spill over the edges, their scents carried upward in the warm light. Lemon balm trembles in the breeze, and sage unfurls its soft leaves as though waking from a gentle sleep. Moss softens the cracks between the bricks, turning the entire terrace into a tapestry of greens and earthy reds. Bees drift lazily above the lavender, moving from bloom to bloom in the calm rhythm of a garden waking. What makes this kind of design so inviting is how accessible it is. Terracotta bricks don't require perfection, just placement, one beside another, allowing the natural slope of the ground to guide their height. Anyone with a patch of soil and a bit of time can create a small staircase of herbs that feels like it belongs in a European countryside. The bricks warm quickly under the sun, giving the roots a comfortable environment and releasing the earthy scent of clay every time you water. And because the layers are stepped, the plants aren't competing for space. Each one receives its own sunlight, its own airflow, its own moment to thrive. In another corner of the garden, the terracotta takes a different shape, a spiral rising from the ground like a small, living sculpture. The mismatched bricks add charm rather than distraction, stacked in a way that feels spontaneous yet intentional. Basil fills the warmer, topmost tiers, its leaves glossy and full of fragrance. Mint and parsley settle into the middle, catching the softer afternoon light. Creeping thyme cascades down the lower edges, softening the lines of the spiral and drawing the eye toward the wooden stool beside it. Here, chives bloom quietly, and a scattering of wildflowers interrupts the pattern with small bursts of color. The bricks glow with warmth, and the herbs feel close enough to touch, as if they're part of an everyday ritual. Snipping, smelling, stirring into a meal made with care. As the day continues and the sunlight becomes gentler, the terraces take on a deeper, older character. In some areas, the terracotta has aged into muted shades of russet and brown, softened even further by patches of moss that creep over the surfaces. Dew from the morning still clings to the basil and mint, catching the last coolness of the air before it evaporates. A wooden bench sits beneath an apple tree, the branches hanging low with ripening fruit. It's the kind of place where you could sit for hours, listening to the breeze moving through the leaves, letting the scent of thyme rise around you. The herbs overflow from their pockets as if grateful for the space, creating a feeling of abundance that's both soothing and grounding. If you feel inspired to recreate this kind of garden at home, start small. A few broken or leftover bricks can become a single tier. Add another ring when you're ready. Let the moss grow in naturally. It will come on its own with moisture and shade. Choose herbs you love to use: rosemary for roasting, basil for salads, mint for tea, thyme for anything that needs a whisper of earthiness. Place the structure somewhere it can be seen from your window or pathway, so it becomes part of your daily view. Gardens like this are not built in one day. They grow gradually, in texture and memory, becoming more beautiful with each season that passes. And as you watch your own herbs spill over the terracotta edges, glowing in the sun just as these do, you may find that what began as a simple project becomes something deeper, a place to pause, breathe, and feel connected to a rhythm older than any of us. A rhythm built from soil, light, and the quiet magic of things grown by hand. Four, Rustic Crate Planter Village, European Wooden Box Garden. There is something irresistibly charming about a garden built from things most people would overlook. Wooden crates, once used to carry fruit, stacked in storage rooms, or left behind after deliveries, can become the beginnings of a tiny village when placed with a bit of imagination. Under the soft morning light, these crates transform into little wooden houses, each one holding a pocket of life. Strawberries spill over the edges with bright red fruit dangling like tiny lanterns. Lettuce rests in gentle waves of green, and mint lifts its leaves toward the warmth. Butterflies land lightly on strawberry flowers, unaware that their miniature homes are made from simple pieces of wood that once had no purpose anymore. It feels like stepping into a scene from an old European orchard, where practicality and whimsy coexist naturally. These boxes, with their rough textures and fabric linings, offer small lessons in simplicity. You don't need perfect lumber or precision tools. Even crates with uneven slats or mismatched coloring have their own beauty. A layer of landscape fabric inside helps keep soil in place, and from there you can plant almost anything: herbs, salad greens, trailing flowers. Strawberries are particularly charming in this setup. They drape gracefully, turning each crate into a tiny balcony garden. If you stack the crates at different heights, you create variations of shade and sun, which different plants appreciate. Lettuce likes the cooler lower levels, while strawberries love the brighter upper tiers. In another part of the garden, the crates take on softer tones. Painted in sage green, dusty rose, and butter yellow, they line up along a courtyard wall like a pastel tapestry. Rosemary pushes upward with confident spines, basil fills the air with its warm fragrance, and dill dances lightly in the afternoon breeze. Some crates have edges where the paint has chipped slightly, revealing the wood underneath, a reminder that age only adds character. This setup works beautifully in small spaces or narrow side yards because it lets you grow upward instead of outward. Even a wall that once felt bare can become a living herb pantry with just a few sturdy nails and a bit of creativity. And then, there is the orchard corner. Beneath a blooming tree, crates are arranged in a way that feels effortless, as though they might have simply grown from the grass. Some crates lie on their sides, turning into shelves filled with thyme, mint, and tiny alpine strawberries. Others stand like little wooden cottages with slanted roofs, a charming twist that makes the garden feel almost like a miniature world. A bench sits nearby, warmed by the afternoon sun, with a woven basket ready for harvesting. Blossoms drift gently from the tree above, settling on the grass and around the crates like soft confetti. If you choose to recreate something like this, start with crates that are sturdy enough to carry soil but not necessarily new. A quick sanding can smooth rough edges, and a coat of paint or stain gives them a longer life outdoors. Line the inside with fabric or burlap, fill them with good soil, and pick plants that match your climate and sunlight. The beauty of crate gardening is that it adapts easily. Move them around when seasons change, stack them higher if you want more space, or keep them low for a cottage-like look. And because they're light, even those with limited strength or mobility can adjust their layout as their garden grows. What emerges from these simple materials is more than a practical planting system. It's a tiny landscape with personality, full of charming corners and unexpected textures. A place where herbs, berries, and flowers mingle with wooden boxes that hold the warmth of the day. A place that invites you to slow down, breathe in the sweetness of strawberries, and remember that even the most ordinary objects can make a garden feel magical when touched by a bit of imagination. 5. Bamboo orchard fence, vertical fruit and vine trellis. There is a kind of poetry in bamboo, quiet, unhurried, and deeply rooted in the rhythm of nature. When woven into a garden, it carries a warmth that feels both ancient and familiar, even when the poles themselves are simply leftover pieces from an old project. In the early morning, when sunlight first slips across the orchard, a bamboo fence like this one becomes more than a barrier. It becomes a living trellis, a frame where fruit and vines find their way upward. Dew clings to the smooth surface of each pole, sparkling softly as if someone scattered tiny crystals before dawn. Grapevines stretch their tendrils along the vertical lines, and their new leaves glow almost golden in the early light. At the base, raspberries press forward with a bright, eager red, while strawberries hide in quiet patches of green moss. The scene feels effortless, as though the garden simply grew into this shape on its own. What makes bamboo so inviting for DIY gardeners is its honesty. It doesn't fight the landscape, it joins it. A handful of poles, a length of natural jute rope, and a steady pair of hands are enough to build a trellis that will last through seasons. The key is in the tying, wrapping the rope tightly, crossing it on itself, and pulling it snug so the poles sit closely without wobbling. The finished fence seems delicate, but it's surprisingly strong. And because bamboo is hollow and lightweight, anyone can work with it, even without heavy tools. It's the kind of project that encourages you to slow down, to feel the texture of the rope, to listen to the quiet sound bamboo makes when it touches bamboo. By late afternoon, the light changes and the bamboo glows with a richer warmth. The trellis becomes a lattice of soft shadows cast by climbing tomatoes, passion fruit tendrils, and small clusters of leaves reaching for the last sunbeams of the day. In this golden hour, every plant looks alive with possibility. A wheelbarrow left nearby with a tray of seedlings tells its own story. Gardening is never truly finished. There is always one more plant to tuck into soil, one more vine to guide toward the trellis. And that's part of the charm. This bamboo structure isn't just decorative. It supports a cycle of growth, harvest, and renewal. As evening settles deeper into the orchard, the corner where the bamboo fence stands feels almost enchanted. Blackberries climb confidently along the poles, creating arcs of dark fruit against the soft yellow-brown of the bamboo. Strawberries cluster along the ground, their tiny white blossoms catching the last bits of daylight, while mint breathes a cool scent into the air. Small insects drift lazily through the sunbeams, and the whole scene seems to hum with a calm, present energy. It's a reminder that even simple materials, cut bamboo, a rope, a bit of soil, can create a sense of magic when arranged with care. For anyone inspired to try this at home, know that bamboo doesn't demand perfect spacing or precise measurements. It welcomes natural variation. Let the poles lean slightly, let the vines choose their own directions. Use whatever lengths you have. If you place the fence where sunlight passes through during morning or evening, the shadows will paint their own patterns on the ground. And if you plant strawberries or herbs beneath it, they'll soften the base with life and color. In the end, a bamboo trellis is more than a structure. It's a gentle conversation between gardener and garden. A place where fruit grows upward, light falls kindly, and nature's simplicity turns into quiet European magic, crafted not from expensive materials but from the most unassuming pieces of trash waiting to become something meaningful in the right hands. Six, seashell mirror mosaic wall, coastal recycled garden art. There is a certain quiet beauty that only appears when sunlight touches old, forgotten things. In the soft hours of morning, when the light is still gentle and unhurried, a wall decorated with seashells and shards of mirror begins to shimmer as though it has just woken from sleep. Every shell holds a memory of the sea, pearls of white, soft creams, faint blush tones, and their curved surfaces catch the early light with a glow that feels almost alive. Dew gathers on the shells like tiny beads of glass, settling into each groove and scallop ridge. Between them, pieces of broken mirror flash briefly, sending little sparks of brightness across nearby rosemary and lavender pots. It feels as if the garden itself is breathing in light, exhaling color, and revealing details you might miss at any other moment of the day. This kind of mosaic is born from the simplest materials, often gathered without intention. Shells picked up during a beach walk, old ceramic pieces saved from a broken plate, mirror fragments that once would have been swept into a trash bin. When set into mortar or concrete, arranged loosely by instinct rather than strict design, they form a tapestry that reflects nature in both literal and emotional ways. Anyone can attempt it. Press the shells gently into place before the mortar dries. Let their shapes guide the pattern, and leave space for the light to play. The shifting brightness throughout the day will turn the wall into a living artwork that never looks the same twice. In the afternoon, another corner of the garden invites a slower kind of admiration. A small bench rests beside a mosaic wall lined with polished scallop shells, each one glowing softly under the warm sunlight. Terracotta pots filled with mint, lemon balm, and thyme sit above the design, releasing fresh scent every time the breeze passes by. Tiny mirror tiles reflect bits of sky, the purple of orchids, and the movement of leaves overhead. It's a place that feels both grounded and dreamlike, rooted in fragrant herbs and weathered wood, yet brightened by the shimmer of mirrored pieces catching the sun. Sitting here, you can't help but notice how recycled materials effortlessly weave themselves into a garden's natural rhythm when given a bit of attention. And then, in the heart of the garden, a more whimsical creation rises from the soil. A totem made from ruby-tinted shells, broken ceramics, and bright mirror fragments twists upward like a mythical creature emerging from the earth. Beneath it, a circular mirror lies flush with the soil, reflecting drifting clouds, strawberry vines, fig leaves, and the sky as it slowly shifts above. When the sun is high, the mirror sparkles, scattering glimmering highlights across the surrounding plants. The sculpture doesn't feel out of place. It feels as though it belongs here, adding a touch of storybook magic without overpowering the living textures around it. If you're drawn to recreate something similar, let intuition guide your hands. Use whatever shells or broken pieces you already have. Let the forms and colors lead you rather than following a precise pattern. Work in small sections so you can shift things around before the mortar sets. Consider placing mirrors only where they'll catch soft light rather than harsh glare. Partial reflections create mood without overwhelming the scene. And don't worry if some pieces are chipped or imperfect. Those small flaws add depth and authenticity. What emerges from these fragments is more than decoration. It's a quiet conversation between land and memory, between objects rescued from the past and plants growing toward the future. A reminder that even the most ordinary pieces of trash can become something tender and meaningful when shaped by patient hands and placed gently in the light. Seven, colorful tire carousel planters, upcycled rubber garden beds. There is a quiet kind of happiness that rises when you realize something forgotten can still bloom. Old tires, cracked, faded, waiting for their last journey, often lie in corners where no one looks. But when the summer sun touches them gently, you begin to see possibilities you might have missed before. In this garden, those possibilities have already come alive. The first thing that draws your eye is the color. Soft pastels painted across the curve of rubber, each tire becoming a story of its own. Lavender beside butter yellow, mint green glowing softly in the light, sky blue cooling the warm edges of the scene. It feels almost like a carousel for plants, turning slowly in the summer breeze even though it stands completely still. Inside these circles of color, life grows confidently. Sunflowers stretch upward with the kind of hope only plants seem to understand, offering their faces to the sky. Basil settles itself beside thyme, their scents drifting together into the warm air. Strawberries, small and sweet, spill over the tire rims like tiny jewels. If you've never gardened before, this is the kind of project that meets you halfway. The tires create natural containers, deep enough to hold soil, wide enough to let roots wander. Even the heat they absorb can help warm the soil early in the season, giving your plants a gentle push toward growth. When you walk a little farther, you find another arrangement. Stacked colors beneath a plum tree, each tire painted with soft stripes or hand-drawn flowers. The late afternoon light filters through the branches overhead, scattering gold across the marigolds and cherry tomatoes nestled in the upper tire. This is where creativity meets utility. Stacking the tires gives you height, which means more space for trailing herbs like thyme or tiny tomatoes that hang like clusters of morning dew. It also keeps the soil warm and encourages drainage, making it a practical solution for beginner gardeners and those working with small yards. The little garden boots resting beside the planters make you imagine a child helping to water the plants, leaving muddy footprints across the path. Every corner feels touched by human hands, but gently, never forced, never rushed. And then the scene widens into something even more whimsical. A circle of brightly colored tires arranged around a mosaic totem sparkling softly in the late sun. Each mirror fragment on the sculpture catches a moment of sky, a blink of cloud, or the glimmer of a leaf drifting past. There's something magical about how simple materials, broken tiles, leftover ceramic pieces, can become a garden centerpiece that feels both ancient and playful. The tires around it hold strawberries, herbs, and blooming flowers that lean outward as if admiring their own reflection. Moss gathers between the planters, creating a soft, living carpet that ties the whole space together. If you want to create something like this at home, you don't need much more than the willingness to experiment. Old tires are everywhere. Workshops, roadsides, friends who don't know what to do with them. A bit of soap, a coat of paint, and suddenly they carry new color into the world. The shape of a tire makes gardening unintimidating, even for beginners. It keeps soil from washing away, makes weeds easier to manage, and gives you a defined space to play with. Whether you fill them with flowers, herbs, tomatoes, or strawberries, the transformation always feels comforting, like turning waste into wonder with your own hands. In these quiet patches of garden, it becomes clear that magic doesn't ask for perfection. It grows where people decide to care, to reuse, to imagine. A tire that once sat forgotten now holds sunflowers leaning toward the sky. A broken mirror now reflects the beauty that surrounds it. And a small corner of earth becomes something brighter, softer, more alive. Because someone believed that even the simplest materials deserve a second chance. Eight, vintage suitcase bloom bench, antique blooming case planter. When you look at an old suitcase, you might only see the memories it once carried. The stamps, the scratches, the faint scent of faraway places. But in a quiet corner of a garden, something unexpected happens when an ordinary suitcase is opened to the sun and given a second life. Under the gentle shade of a cherry tree, a soft breeze lifts the branches and lets small pockets of sunlight land on a worn leather case resting on a wooden bench. Its lid, still strong after years of travel, opens like a storybook revealing fresh soil tucked neatly into floral linens. Out of that humble bed, strawberry plants rise with tiny white blossoms that turn slowly into glowing red fruit. They look as if they grew there by choice, drawn to the soft cotton fabric and the safety of the old leather walls. Butterflies rest on the checkered inner lining, and wild daisies whisper along the bench legs where the moss has begun to settle. It feels almost accidental, but also deeply intentional. Proof that simple things can bloom with a touch of imagination. A little farther along the orchard, where the ground softens under apple trees, another suitcase waits in the warm afternoon light. This one stands firm, with polished brass latches and a handwritten luggage tag swinging gently as if moved by someone who stopped only moments ago. And inside, instead of belongings, there is life. Rosemary lifting its fragrant spires, mint spilling forward in bright green, alpine strawberries nestled between petunias in soft lavender shades. The colors breathe naturally, fresh, bright, lively, and the textures feel as real as the air around them. Nothing here looks staged or polished. The suitcase doesn't pretend to be anything more than what it is. It simply holds the plants with the steadiness it once offered travelers. Moss hugs the wooden table beneath, lavender nods in the breeze, and the whole scene feels like a quiet invitation to slow down and touch the world again. As the day stretches toward evening, the gravel path at the edge of the garden begins to glow in the golden light. Two vintage suitcases sit stacked, each aged gracefully with scuffed corners and soft leather tones that speak of long journeys. In the top case, chamomile forms a soft cloud of white and yellow, while snapdragons rise in proud, vibrant spikes. Tiny berries pour over the edge, bright as droplets of sunset. A crocheted blanket rests beside them, its loops and patterns catching bits of the fading light, as if someone set it down before taking a quiet walk among the trees nearby. At the foot of the suitcases, a woven basket brimming with blueberries waits patiently, the fruit still cool from the morning shade. Together, the scene feels like a gentle reminder that beauty doesn't always come from new things. Sometimes it grows out of the objects we've kept, loved, carried, and nearly forgotten. And perhaps that is the quiet magic of it all. This idea that what once seemed like trash can become something tender and alive. A suitcase, made to hold memories of past journeys, becomes a little garden that begins a new one. Flowers bloom from unexpected places. Herbs find homes in corners never meant for soil. And the garden, in return, becomes a living diary, one that anyone can create with imagination, a bit of soil, and whatever forgotten treasures lie close at hand. If someone were to wander through this place without knowing the story, they might think it looks like a corner of a European fairy garden. But the truth is simpler and more inspiring. It's made by hand, with pieces of the past transformed into pockets of life. Anyone can begin with what they already have, and with a little patience, turn an old suitcase, or anything else, into a small world that continues to grow. Nine, kitchen utensil wind chime wall, singing garden melody. Sometimes the most unexpected music comes not from instruments, but from objects that once lived quiet, ordinary lives in a kitchen drawer. In a small corner of the garden, a wooden shed wall becomes a stage for these forgotten utensils. Spoons, forks, ladles, even a few enamel teacups hang neatly in rows, catching the soft breath of morning. When the breeze drifts through, the metal pieces touch lightly, creating a faint clinking that feels like a whisper between old friends. Sunlight lands on the aged wood behind them, warming its grain and revealing years of weathering. Beneath this gentle display, lavender sways with a rhythm of its own, while wild strawberries push through the soil at the very base, adding tiny bursts of color against the muted metals. Nothing here is loud or showy. Everything exists in harmony, turning ordinary kitchen tools into a garden's gentle melody. A little farther along, the world becomes playful. A rustic beam stretches above a blooming lavender bed, and from it hang small treasures tied carefully with twine. Teacups with faded floral prints tilt slightly as they spin. Seashells catch the light with soft pearlescence, and old serving spoons reflect tiny glimmers from the sun. The breeze lifts and turns each piece, making them rotate slowly like dancers in a quiet performance. Bees wander lazily through the lavender below, drawn by the scent and unaware that the twirling shapes above are made from things people often throw away. But here, in the glow of the afternoon light, these cast-off pieces feel almost enchanted. They shimmer, they move, they sing in their own gentle language, part wind chime, part sculpture, part memory. And then, under the cool shade of a grapevine pergola, the scene shifts again. Dozens of utensils, some silver, some brass, some made of old colorful plastic, hang in a long shimmering curtain. The grape leaves filter the sunlight into soft green tones, dappling the metal pieces with shifting patterns. Every gentle breeze sends the curtain into motion, creating a soft cascade of tiny taps and clicks. The sound is subtle, but soothing, like rain beginning to fall on an old tin roof. Underneath, daisies and lavender stretch toward the light, bringing fragrance and brightness to the space. Above them, clusters of young grapes hang quietly, forming a canopy that feels like a natural ceiling of light and shadow. What might have been seen as junk becomes something tender and alive when placed in a garden. Old utensils, forgotten mugs, mismatched spoons, they all find new purpose when allowed to move with the wind and catch the sunlight. And that's the quiet magic of upcycling. It teaches us to look again, to imagine differently, to turn simple objects into pieces of art that breathe with the world around them. Anyone can do this, with whatever they already have. A scrap of wood, a few hooks, utensils that no longer match. Combine them with a bit of time, and suddenly the garden sings with a melody you didn't know it was missing. Burlap sack mini greenhouse, rope-stitched fairy garden house. There is a quiet kind of magic that appears when sunlight meets burlap. At first, the structure looks simple, just a frame wrapped in old sacks stitched together with thick rope. But the moment you step inside, the world changes. Morning mist lingers in the air like something half-remembered, and the loosely woven roof lets the light fall in gentle patches that drift across the wooden floor. Hanging from the beams are coconut husk planters, each one cradling strawberry plants whose fruit glows a soft, natural red. Their leaves rustle at the slightest movement of air, and the warmth inside the greenhouse turns that tiny sound into something soothing. Along the sides, tomato vines climb handmade twine trellises, gripping the rope with a quiet determination. Moss spreads peacefully around the floorboards, filling the space with a scent so earthy and familiar you almost forget the entire structure is made from materials people usually throw away. Walk a little farther, and you find a tunnel greenhouse shaped like a soft arch over the soil. The walls are coffee sacks, faded stamps, worn lettering, and frayed edges telling stories of long journeys across continents. Stretched over bent bamboo, The sacks create a steady shelter that breathes rather than traps heat, making the space inside feel cool but bright. Rows of baby spinach push their way upward in tidy lines, while strawberries form little red constellations near the ground, and delicate vines curl around the bamboo ribs as if they know exactly where to grow. The sunlight here is softer, the kind of light that moves slowly across the day. Outside the tunnel, marigolds blaze in orange and yellow while tiny daisies hover like little stars around the entrance. It is simple, practical, and beautiful, made from nothing more than sacks, bamboo, and imagination. And then there is the cottage greenhouse, stitched together like a patchwork story. Burlap rice sacks form the walls, each square carrying different symbols, faded logos, and earthy tones that give the space a personality all its own. The roof is made from recycled clear plastic, allowing sunbeams to fall inside in warm golden streaks. Against one wall, rope is knotted into a vertical grid where tomato vines stretch skyward, their leaves brushing the beams overhead. Coconut shell planters swing gently from the rafters, filled with herbs whose scents drift through the air each time the breeze slips through the doorway. A cheerful little garden gnome stands guard near the entrance as if welcoming visitors into a world stitched from creativity rather than cost. Around him, thyme, lavender, and the broad leaves of a young fig tree fill the corners with color and fragrance. What makes these spaces magical isn't the materials. They're just burlap sacks, discarded ropes, old frames, and bits of wood. The magic is what happens when those objects are given new purpose. A greenhouse doesn't need to be perfect to work. It only needs warmth, light, and a bit of care. Anyone can create something like this, with patience and whatever materials happen to be nearby. Even scraps and cast-offs can become rooms where plants stay warm, fruits ripen early, and small harvests thrive in comfort. In the end, these burlap greenhouses show something simple but powerful. That beauty grows when we choose to see possibility where others see trash. Light shines differently through woven fibers. Leaves seem greener when framed by something handmade. And every knot, every stitch, every rope tied into place becomes part of a quiet fairy garden story that unfolds a little more each day. If today's ideas inspired you to see everyday objects differently, imagine what else you can create with what you already have. Your garden doesn't need expensive materials, just curiosity, creativity, and the courage to try something new. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your own creations in the comments. Together, we can turn simple scraps into beautiful spaces. Thanks for watching Backyard Fortune, where your next garden transformation begins.